What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Hope you're doing awesome today. My name is Brendan, and we got a little bit of a special video for y'all today. So now that things are kind of slowing down around here, I felt like it was finally time for us to do the official Hunt Farms tour. Now we're mainly just going to be going over all the different types of equipment we've got today. You're going to find all kinds of stuff around here. You're either going to think it's junk, it's pretty cool, or it might have a little bit of history to it. Stay tuned and let's see what we got today. So we're going to be starting up here at the Farm HQ, aka my grandpa's house. And then after that, we're going to move down to my house, and then the shed between my parents' house and my house. So, as always, if you guys enjoy this kind of content, be sure to like and subscribe, or follow the page. And hit that share button, share it with your friends, your dogs, your cats, your cattle, your sheep, your chickens, your goats, your horses. Hell, you can even share it with your crops. I don't care. Just spread the word of this channel. That's the best way to support me and everything I do, so we can keep pumping out videos like this for you guys. So, without further ado, let's get straight into it. I will not be covering the grain vac, as that's just something that we rent. So we're going to start off with the smaller stuff first. This is my grandparents' lawnmower. It's a Grasshopper 932 gas-powered 61-inch mower. This is my John Deere Z930M 61-inch zero-turn. I used to run a little lawn care company, and that was my main mower right there. Up next, we've got this pair of Articat four-wheelers. The one is very old, and it's more of a parts machine than anything. My grandpa sprays brush and thistles with this one. Up next, we have one of my restoration projects. This is a 1976 Chevrolet Camaro. It's got the red interior with the turbo 350 automatic transmission. The hood does not go up properly since I have the springs and latches off, so under the hood is a pretty much bone stock 350 Chevy motor. All I've done to it is the Edelbrock 2701 intake manifold and the 1406 carburetor with a pre-cleaner. I'm hoping to swap a LQ460LS into that one day. Up next in the shed, we have a piece of history. Well, two pieces of history. We have a John Deere Model 420 right here. This is the first tractor I ever learned how to drive when I was about 5, maybe 6 years old. I might have been a little younger than that. Your hydraulics sat right here. I never remembered what this was for. This might have been PTO. Don't quote me on that though. Transmission, gear selector. You got your throttle right there, steering wheel, and then you got your little instrument cluster right there. This had a little gas motor in it. I don't remember the specs on it though. Now we have old rusty trusty but reliable. This is also a 76. It's a Chevrolet K20, I believe. It's got the 350 in it as well. It's been hopped up just a little bit, but you could always pop a battery in this thing and it'll start right up every time. We call this truck Old Greenie. My grandpa first started feeding with it back in the day. It might be beat to hell, but it's got a lot of history and I've got a lot of memories in it. Sitting on the back of this truck is one of our TNS Trip Hopper cake feeders. It's got a flatbed on it. Then this is another piece of history right here. This is an Allis Chalmers rotary mini round baler. We've got quite a couple of these actually. I think we have 6 or 7 of them. Some of them have the white top, which they were kind of hard to come across back in the day, or now I guess. They're a very rare spec. We've got this little PTO driven auger wagon for feeding. I don't know what we used it for back in the day, probably whenever we were feeding hogs. Alrighty, making our way out of the shed now. Right behind me is the semi you guys see me in a lot. It is a 1981 Peterbilt 379. It used to have a sleeper on it. We jackknifed it a couple years ago, and now it's basically just a quote-unquote stretched day cab. This truck has a 3406 B model cat. It's all mechanical. Has a 15-speed Eaton Roadrunner transmission in it with a deep reduction. Then we have a Wilson pace setter. I believe this is a 38-foot long trailer. it can hold about 1,200 bushels of corn and about 1,000 of soybeans. And then we've got our bin site right here. Sitting right next to the bin site, we have an Aggie Westfield MK 171. Great grain auger for these bins. Can be a little bit tricky loading them out sometimes. And sitting on the front of it is a John Deere 4230. We bought this brand new. It's got 13,000 hours on it, I believe, somewhere in that area. It's great for the auger or the feed wagon, and that's about it. Now, if you guys look closely down there over the top of that hay bale pile, you will see 4 more of the Allis-Chalmers little rotary hay balers. I'm telling you, we got a pile of them. Now we're coming out to the back corner of the farmyard, I guess you could call it. This is somewhat of a graveyard, but we put some of our tillage equipment back here as well. So we've got this M&W little red wagon, gravity wagon. We've got another, I believe this is a 79 K10, and it had a very hopped up 350 in it. Transfer case and transmission went out of it. Kept saying I was going to restore it, never got that far, so it just kind of sits back here. And then we've got my high school vehicle down there, a 2007 Chevy Trailblazer. Had a tree fall on that, so yippee. Here we have Dad's John Deere 2510 high-speed anhydrous applicator. We run that in the fall and spring to put anhydrous in the ground for mostly custom work. We do a lot of custom farming, and that is one of the main machines we use. My applicator is currently sitting in town at Co-op. It was just closest there, and it's easier to work on them there. We have a lot more space to work with. So my applicator is a Case 930. It's a 17 shank. Just got it this year. We did a trade-in on my old one because it was over 10 years old and I was due for an update. I have a lot of memories when I was younger doing square bales with this elevator. Basically, it's just a little chain. You can kind of see it on the bottom there. Set it up, drag the wheels, and it'll drive that chain, bring the square bales off the ground, right up to the trailer. You can stack them from there. We've also got our old hay elevator from when we would load up into the loft. This right here is our Phillips rotary harrow. It is 40 feet wide, and it can cover some ground. Not as fancy as a Kelly Diamond, but it gets the job done. Right here are 2 of our old augers that we used to use before we got the semi and had to update to the Westfield auger. These were just conventional dumps where you back up with a grain truck and dump right into it. We've got our very old hay trailer that we used to hook it up to the back of the tractor. We got a little 3-point 5th wheel ball put on it, and you could just back right up to it, pick it up and go. Frame was not very good on it because we used to overload the crap out of it. Right here is our Case IH 330 Turbo Till. Now, if you guys will notice, there's some welds right there, and that was my fault. So last spring I was prepping for plant, and that was when we still had the 9230. Now, I still was not used to the sensitive steering at the time, and I kind of got a little bit close to the ditch, and I saw a culvert pipe coming up. Well, I didn't catch it in time, and I jerked the wheel the wrong way. So I ended up catching it with the outer edge of this wing right here, and I bent part of the frame on it. So that was my screw up. We got it taken care of, though. It all worked out great. And we don't have that tractor anymore. This is our old 20 foot, I believe. It might be a 20 foot. Kraus cultivator. It's pretty wore out. As well as this disc. Even though we use it for disking some CRP areas or food plots. This is just a parts disc. And this is a, I don't even know how wide this damn thing is. But it's a drawbar mounted with 3 sections, chisel plow. Dad picked it up at an auction like 6 years ago. I think we've used it maybe once or twice. And here's the man of the hour itself, our Cat Challenger MT765. That is currently down for the count. We've been struggling with it lately, having electrical issues, but that's just most AGCO tractors for you. Turns out this tractor just fried the ECM in it. We actually had the Cat Tech down today looking at it, and that was the solution we came up with. We pulled it out, and sure enough, ECM was fried. We've got another chisel plow right here. This is 3-point mount. We used this a couple years ago, so we actually do use that one. Here is the sleeper off of that 379. Like I said, Dad jackknifed it pretty good, which is a shame. That truck looked absolutely beautiful with the sleeper on, but what can you do? We will now move on to the other side of the lot, other side of the back side, I guess, and that'll pretty much wrap this up. We got another mini round hay baler, and these are our old hog houses. We used to raise hogs back in the 90s, and thankfully we got out right before the market crashed, so that was good on our end. I'm gonna try to knock a couple out at once here. This is Dad's dump truck. I drive it. It is a Kenworth T800 with 3406 E model cat or a C15. This is our inline hay trailer. It holds 7 bales at a time. I did a video on this during the summer. Feel free to check that out. This is our old Ashland scraper. We don't use it very often anymore, but back in the day, this thing has built quite a couple ponds. We've got 2 end dumps right here. We use this one for silage, even though it don't work the best. Then we've got this very old John Deere row crop cultivator. My grandpa spent a lot of hours on the 4010 running this back in the day. Here's a cultivator we picked up at an auction last year. We haven't got to use it too much, but so far so good, I guess. We got an old road maintainer blade right there. Old scraper right there. A Kilbros gravity wagon. Another one down there. And then we've got our inline harrow down there. I wouldn't really call that an inline, but it's a pasture harrow. That is my trailer. I use that for hauling my lawnmower around, picking up metal for my shop, or hauling square bales for deliveries. Up next, we got this Allis-Chalmers WD tractor. Very old. We've had that for a long time. Hooked up to another mini round hay baler, Allis-Chalmers. And then sitting up on the ledge right here, we've got some various skid steer attachments, some old tracks off of that Challenger, fuel barrel, and a tailgate. So that wraps it up for this part of the farm, I guess, aside from our 2 livestock trailers that are goosenecks and our T6 Kenworth that has the neighbor's hopper bottom on it. So now we're going to go down to my house, which is considered the cattle headquarters. I'll see you guys there. Now, for full disclosure, I will not be going into detail about how many cattle we raise or how much ground we farm, because there really ain't that much to talk about there. It's not much. It's enough to keep us content and keep us busy. We do a lot of custom farming, like I said, though. We work with our local co-op, me and my dad do, and we put on a lot of fall and spring anhydrous, along with doing custom silage shopping for a lot of local people, including a feedlot in the area. So while we may not farm very much, we do a pretty good amount of custom farming, and that just kind of justifies why we have the equipment we do, I guess. So right here is our John Deere 333G skid steer. We used to not have a skid loader. Well, technically we did. I'm about to show it to you. But we never had nothing really too big and fancy until about a couple years ago. We got a New Holland C232, and then we traded it off for the first 333G, and then now we have another one. So I'm really glad we ended up going that direction, because that works really well for when I was landscaping or doing brush clearing and all that jazz. So like I said, now we are down at my house in the cattle headquarters, which means we are in the feed barn, as we refer to it as. We have another M&W wagon right here. This one has an auger on it. Used to be a seed tender, now it holds feed. Hooked up to that is a John Deere 4010. This is the one I was talking about my grandpa used to do a lot of hours cultivating corn with. Here's our old skid steer. We still use it a little bit. It's a Gale 4610, and now we have a very beautiful tractor that just needs a washing. This is a John Deere Model 60, and it's the narrow front, of course, or the bicycle front, whatever you guys want to call that. This thing needs a new hand clutch rebuilt. Last time my grandpa drove it, it kind of shot the shit. Very beautiful tractor though. I've hauled a lot of square bales on this tractor, along with learning how to little round hay bale on that tractor, back when we used to still do that a lot. We don't really do it anymore though. Up next is our John Deere 1590 box drill. We use this to plant cover crops, and we plant some wheat with it, or some soybeans with it as well. My apologies. Here's our Bush Hog 1820. Mow a lot of pastures with this. We've had this for quite a couple years now. I'm gonna duck below these spider webs here. Now, if you guys look over there, there's a black painted section. That was my fault as well. You'll see a running connection here. I cracked that square tubing open and it ended up bending and breaking. So I built a new piece, fabricated it up, welded it in there, and put some gussets on there. Seems to be holding up pretty good. We've got a Vermeer R2300 rotary rake right here, hydraulic lift, hydraulic fold, and adjustment for your windrow. Sitting right behind it is a New Holland 313 disc bind mower conditioner. I've mowed a lot of hay with that over the past good chunk of years, which we used to, before we got this, the dealer we actually got it from is out of business now, sadly, but they took our old 7450 hay bind and traded in for this. We've got this old John Deere 310 backhoe. This is a piece of history right here. Funny story. One day, I think I was like, I want to say 12, maybe 13 years old. I didn't have school because it was summertime, of course. And I got bored one day and I was like, you know what? I want to go dig. So I came out to the shed and I fired this thing up because it was sitting right there ready to go. Well, little did I know that the brakes don't work on this. So I decided I was going to go build a crossing next to a pond so I could get my fishing stuff over there a lot easier. And when I was backing up to start digging, Lord behold, the brakes didn't work. So I basically went off the edge of that pond bank, kind of, and I buried this thing. We had to get a tractor to get it out. That was fun. Sitting next to it is our old Gale 125 feed grinder. We used to grind a lot of feed back in the day, especially when we had hogs. Once we got rid of the hogs and kind of put our main focus towards cattle, we couldn't really keep up with it as much, and it might cost us a little bit more to do, but we can get a much better ration by having our local co-op grind it up and bring it out, set it on this trailer, and that saves us time in having to grind feed. That's the hay shed. The silage truck is not here. My grandpa and Josh are still out choring, evidently. So you guys have seen that in plenty of videos. There's not really much of a need to go over that. Now, we built this shed recently. This is our new cattle working facility. We've got corrals and pens all around it. We also store the silage box in there during the warmer months. Silage pit sits right there. There's some calves and one of my sister's show heifers. And then you got some cattle out in my backyard, just grazing right on above the pond. Favorite thing to come out and see in the morning. So now that that's all done, we will go over to what we call the combine shed, and that's where all of the big equipment is stored. All right, this here is what we call the combine shed. This is where all of our big equipment's stored, even though it's not too big. I mean, it's big enough for us. So we're gonna go over everything in here real quick, and that'll do it for this. So of course, up first, we've got my personal favorite, the John Deere 8430. We've had this for a long time. Very good tractor. And here's its new brother that we just brought home in my previous video, which I'll put right up here. This is our new to us John Deere 8370R. It's got like 5,200 hours on it. Now this right here is a tractor worth noting. This is a John Deere 4440. This is a first-year tractor. This is the very first tractor my grandpa ever bought when he started farming. He bought this thing brand new off the lot, and it served us well. I love this tractor. I would love to restore it one of these days. I don't have the patience nor the money though. And then we've got our little grain cart right behind it. It holds about 500 bushels. Right next to it is our John Deere 4755. Me and Dad picked this up at an auction in Iowa about 7 years ago. Very good tractor. We use it for a lot. Coming over here, we've got our John Deere 560M hay baler. It's a silage special, so it's got the pre-cutters and all that jazz. And here's our John Deere 337 square baler. I love this thing. We bale a lot of square bales with it over the years. Oh yeah. I should have turned the lights on, but that's my own fault. I get to pay for it now. Here we've got one of our other this is our biggest grain cart. It holds about 650 bushels of corn, close to 500 on beans. This is our combine. It is a John Deere 9770 STS. This was the biggest purchase we ever made before we got this tractor. Before this, we had an old 9500. Coming over here, we've got our MacDon 30-foot draper that goes on the combine. We also have a 12-row John Deere corn head that sits at our other farm closer to town. Everybody's favorite machine during the summer. This is our John Deere 7400 silage chopper, and it's got a motor out of a 7500. I'm gonna get dark, I apologize. Really should have turned on the lights. Right here is our John Deere 1760 12-row corn planter. We plant corn and we plant beans with this. This is our John Deere 6710 silage chopper. This is our backup chopper. It was the first one we ever bought. Right over here, tucked away in the corner, we've got our old grain truck with one of my favorite plaque cards. This is an old International straight truck. It's got a 10-speed transmission. You guys can't see in there because I barely can. It's got a DT466. Yes, DT466 diesel motor in there. And yeah, that's pretty much all of our big equipment. So that's all the equipment we use here on Hunt Farms. And I hope you guys learned something about what we use. So I hope you all enjoyed this little equipment tour video. Don't really want to get into detail about the ground and all that. It's all kind of spaced out. Most of it's pretty close to home, but there's not really much to show there. So we're just going to leave off on that note. Hope y'all enjoyed. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see y'all next time.